What's up, people? It's Jank Games here, and recently I've been playing a game that's a bit of a mess.
Bro, I don't want to die, man. I just started doing this YouTube thing, man. I'm having a good time, bro. Don't kill me. Good turn. Oh my god!
It's called 98XX. Horrifying jump scares, countless murders, hacked computers, forcibly shoving unwilling participants into software for the rest of their lives. Okay, wait. Hold on. I guess it'd be easiest to start from the beginning. This story starts with Rosie Inc., a company that specialized in the development of tiny yet power-efficient computer chips. These chips were portable yet wonderful for the game development world. The main mission of the company was to provide computers with unimaginable power while simultaneously giving users a smaller device. It was a successful invention, so successful in fact that it caught the attention of MyRes, a company focused on the production of computers. With Rosie providing resources and intelligence to MyRes, together they created 98XX, a computer software designed to give lightning fast performance and stunning graphics to all users. This may not seem relevant now, but you'll soon see how important this first step really is. How much it played into the disasters that we see unfold, unlocking the secrets within this 98XX computer here. We'll get back to this momentarily. For now, let's jump to another place, Dreamer Studios, where a very important man is hard at work on a game that would soon enrapture the world, for better or for worse. There, we have John Monkford, who is developing a game you all must know very well now, one with a very lovable, low-quality man, Jumping Julian. This game promised a unique platforming experience with vibrant visuals and engaging gameplay, so it was highly anticipated by the public. At first, things seemed to be okay. An article was published expressing how amazing the game was and how it would remain a fan favorite for years. However, soon after, a flood of negative reviews and frustrated consumers followed. The more people played, the more they discovered the flaws. It had frustrating controls and a repetitive level design, and so the game fell off fairly quickly. One important person left a particularly harsh review, a man who goes by the name of Jason Storm, an employee at Rosie Inc. We learned from this Jumping Julian article that he was the driving force that led Monkford to quitting the game development business. His review left John Monkford heartbroken and depressed. The negative feedback proved to be too much for Monkford, who struggled to cope with criticism. After a few months, he decided to leave the game development industry and pursue other opportunities. And where did Monkford decide to work? An interesting little place we've mentioned a few times already. Rosie Inc., where things begin to crumble to pieces. Not long into Monkford's employment do two very horrifying things suddenly happen. The first thing, Jason Storm suddenly vanishes. On October 22nd, 1998, he disappeared, last seen heading to the company warehouse to work on a new project. His colleagues reported him as missing, but he was never found. Rosie Inc. was suspected to have played a role, but they strongly denied their involvement and were incredibly cooperative with authorities. Monkford himself was also suspected. And the other thing? Significantly worse. In late October, at around the same time, there was a sudden suicide that happened right inside of Rosie headquarters. An employee was found dead in his office, and surrounding him were a mass of monitors displaying a familiar, lovable character. Jumping Julian. Initially, this was considered to be an isolated case, but soon after, more employees were committing suicide after playing the game. In the secret police report video, we learned that on November 5th, 1998, a distress call was received by the police about the multiple suicide cases at Rosie. Within the company, a memo was sent out warning the employees to not touch the game under any circumstances. Through investigation, the police learned that John Monkford had hacked into the company's computer systems to introduce the game to employees. Along with this, he had hidden code and subliminal messages in the game to trigger suicidal behavior, sending employees into psychological distress. Monkford was long gone before this information was discovered. He had been fired from the company because he was a suspect in Jason Storm's disappearance, but because there wasn't enough evidence to convict him, he was simply let go. With him, he stole several of Rosie's computer chips. The police launched a search for him regardless. Surprisingly enough, they were able to locate him in his own residence. However, However, all that they found there was his corpse, his cause of death still unknown. They concluded that he had taken his own life. On December 15th, 1998, an article was released revealing that Razi Inc. shut down shortly after the suicide outbreak in November. Gamers and game developers panicked everywhere upon learning of the information, with many calling for increased regulation and oversight in the industry. In the wake of the incident, Razi Inc. was forced to shut down, and the company assets of Razi Inc. were their revolutionary computer chips. So, the chips were distributed to other companies so that they could take advantage of the advanced technology, and Razi became a thing of the past. Except, that's not how this story really ends, is it? As dark as this tale is, would you believe me if I told you it gets much, much darker? What if I told you that Monkford wasn't really dead? There are multiple moments that confirm this theory. For example, if you manage to discover the interview with John Monkford, he explains that he worked with Razi because he was fascinated by the computer chip, and that at one point he was working on Jumping Julian, but that was in the past. And just as the interviewer says that they can take 5, the screen glitches, and we get a very difficult to see message. But when you brighten it, clear as day, it reads, "I am always watching and listening," with 2 menacing eyes on the top of the screen. There is a reason I am certain that those are eyes glaring at you too. In the second update of the game, we are introduced to some audio clips. One of those clips is entirely unintelligible. But thanks to Frisco the Sheriff 1994, I realized that this could be put through a spectrum analyzer. And once you do that, you get this message: "I am always here. I am always watching." And there we see those similar, terrifying eyes on a full, demonic-looking face. And that's not where the evidence ends either. At the end of the police report video, just after they tell us that Monkford is already dead, we get a flash of a message that reads, "I'm still here." And when you manage to download the secret video that you get from accessing the articles, you immediately hear patterned beeping. This is none other than Morse code, and when you translate what is being said, you get this: "I am always here. I am always watching. I know everything. They thought I was gone, but I'm still here. Nothing can stop me." So it is undeniable that Monkford lives on through the computers, or more specifically, the chips developed by Razi that he stole. It gets even more unnerving when you notice a very tiny detail in a page that seems entirely irrelevant to us. On the Razi website, we are flooded with information on the purpose of the company, but right underneath the picture of the hard-working individuals, we have a quote that states, "The human brain can function just like a computer chip. Employee JM." Employee JM. JM. Now, why does that ring a bell? That quote comes from none other than John Monkford himself. How am I sure? Isn't it suspicious that the other quote on this page has the full name of the person that said it, Bob Carter, while this one doesn't? That person was intentionally left anonymous so that we would ignore that detail entirely. But how many JMs have we been introduced to so far other than him in that quote? An interesting statement, considering we just confirmed that Monkford lives on through them, letting his brain exist within the computers. Even while he was talking to other people at the company, he knew very well what he intended to do, and he didn't try to hide it. Now that we've uncovered this mystery, there are still a few more things to talk about. There are many different games that we have access to in 98XX, but only 4 of them involve characters with some sort of dialogue, or even a jump scare. Those would be Jumping Julian, Ball Popper, Questions and Answers, and Talking Gerald. Ball Popper would seem to be the outlier here, but we know that once you die, a child appears suddenly on screen, speaking in gibberish before sending your heart to another dimension. But what if I told you that these characters weren't characters at all? What if they were all, like Monkford, humans living through the 98XX software? Let's start with Jumping Julian. Jumping Julian is the very first game that we typically decide to play, and here we're introduced to a very fun, energetic little fella that encourages us to get through the challenging platformer.
"I love when people play with me."
Each time we beat a level, he explains to us in some way that the level has gotten more difficult, but we can still do it.
"This looks a bit tougher, but I should make it through."
Interesting, considering the main gripe people originally had with the game was the lack of difficulty. Once you beat it the first time, The game and computer crash. An error appears on screen with a random assortment of numbers scattered between it. Well, turns out these numbers are not random at all. It's written in hexadecimal, and once you translate it, it reads, "Let me out. He has trapped us here. We are running out of time." Trap them? Then you're brought back to the home screen, where Julian greets you to explain that a problem has occurred, but he has made the game better. This is where things really start to get weird. Right after that, he asks us an odd question.
Do you ever wonder if there's an afterlife? It's something I've really been thinking about.
Then, he lets us go on about our business. Why would a game character suddenly ask you that? Then, you play through the game again with some deadly obstacles, and on the last level, Julian tells you that the end is near, and yet so far. Do you mean the level, Julian, or something else? And then, once you finally beat the game again, you are faced with a terrifying looking red screen, Julian sitting center stage. He tells us this.
Do you ever wonder why death happens? Death comes unexpectedly. One moment you're fine, and then it all ends. So, you must die, you must die, you must die.
And then, you are jump scared by a static screen with a distorted face. Okay, so let's back up for a moment. In Julian's final words to you, there is actually a small section of dialogue that is reversed, where if you listen closely, you can hear this.
It is too late for us.
In that set of menacing dialogue, there is one last sad piece from Julian, or more accurately, the person playing as Julian. There is no escape from this hell. With all this being revealed, all that's left is to decide who exactly is trapped playing this character. As far as I can tell, there is only one logical choice: Jason Storm. Think about it! Not long after the release of his review of the game and Monkford's arrival to Rozzy Inc. did he suddenly go missing. Him, along with many others, complained about the simplicity and lameness of the game, attacking it for its boring and easy levels with no reason to want to continue forward. And now, suddenly, Julian is constantly commenting on how complex and difficult the levels are, even trying to fix the game as you go along. Monkford was disappointed in Jason, and therefore served him what he figured was a deserved punishment. If you hate my game so much, why don't you play the improved versions yourself? Jason wanted more to the game, and Monkford forced him to endure the very thing he asked for: forever. Now, the other 3 games are made by a different company, Calvis Games, which became popular after Monkford's presumed death between 1998 and 1999. There isn't much on the start of Calvis Games, but this company succeeded with its simplistic games during its early stages of development. A document exists within the game that discusses the creativity and innovation of the company while essentially advertising it, and is dated December 31st, 1998. So it is safe to assume that Calvis Games was created around that time. The document is entirely centered around trying to recruit people to the company. Well, it seems Calvis Games had an interesting way of recruiting for some people. Let's take a look at 2 very specific documents for a moment. On June 25th, 1999, a parent discussed their concerns about Ball Popper, saying that their son achieved an impressive score of 1990, which brought him great joy and excitement. However, when he attempted to close the game, their computer suddenly crashed, resulting in an unexpected shutdown. They then kindly asked that the company handle this issue promptly. In the other document, dated only about a week later, a parent again complains to Calvis Games about their son, this time about their unhealthy obsession with the games as a whole. His academic performance plummeted and his social interactions declined, and again, they requested assistance from the company. Now, there is no direct statement linking the 2 documents, but there are too many similarities within both to consider them to be written by 2 different parents. First, they each discuss a son, which seems small, but is a little too convenient, especially in such a short span of time. And on top of this, the way each letter is written is a little too similar as well. Some dialogue is almost exactly the same. Even tonally, they are written the same way, as if someone had a formula for typing formal letters out to companies to come off as respectful yet firm. Now, maybe you're wondering where I'm going with this. What exactly do these two documents have to do with my theory about people being inside of these games? In Ball Popper, you're able to play as long as you like. There is no winning, just a constant gaining of points. But one thing is guaranteed. If you lose, a black and white little boy appears on screen, shaking frantically. He then shouts at you in what appears to be gibberish, then jump scares you, crashing your computer. A little boy. In that gibberish, if we take that audio he spews at us and reverse it, we get this.
I just wanted to play. I just wanted to have fun. This isn't fun. I want my mommy.
A boy, a son, who just wanted to play, who just wanted to have fun, who just wants his mommy. That boy, the same one that played Ball Popper, that same one who had obsessed over the games made by Calvis Games, is trapped in here. We already know that Monkford doesn't take too kindly to criticism. Recall what happened to Jason Storm. Now, this child's mother attacked the company about its flaws, then later asked for their assistance in addressing his obsessive behavior. A win-win. The mother could be punished for her apparent disapproval, and the child could fully embrace his obsessive tendencies inside the game. The other two games are directly related to one another in a way that you wouldn't believe. But the easiest way to cover it all is to start with Talking Gerald. Talking Gerald is a game that was added in a later update, allowing you to, well, talk to Gerald, a cartoonish floating head. The dialogue choices didn't leave much room, but certain options give very interesting responses. If you end up gaining the ability to ask him why he exists, he starts off simple enough, telling you that he exists for your entertainment. But very quickly, like the child, he speaks quickly and in apparent gibberish. Taking this dialogue and reversing it, however, gives us this.
My parents died when I was young. I had no one to love me. Drinking was the only thing I resorted to. That's why she left me. I know I shouldn't have done it, but now it's too late. That is why I'm here.
An eerie set of dialogue for an entertaining talking head, wouldn't you say? But some research within the game makes us realize something even more unsettling. This isn't the first time we've heard this information. Two very important documents come to mind here, both found in different places. The first, a DUI police report. On August 12, 1998, there was a tragic car accident involving a blue sedan and a black pickup truck. The man, in his 30s, was driving drunk and slammed into the sedan that housed a mother and daughter. Both were rushed to the hospital, but neither survived the injuries they received. The man was arrested and charged with vehicular manslaughter, driving under the influence, and reckless driving. Now, in the second update of the game, you gain access to yet another document, one with a picture and a name attached. This document provides us with essentially the same information, but now we know who did it. His name was Gary Summers, a drunk driver, a man with reason to have regrets, something he shouldn't have done. Gerald just told us this. The answer was right in front of us all along. Punished for his actions, Gary Summers was forced into this world, into this computer, to live on with no clue of how he got there, not unless you asked him the right questions, leading to a malfunction. The names themselves were even similar, Gary literally being short for Gerald. And in the article, it states that Gary was released on bail by an unidentified man on March 3rd, 1999, and the person who released him told the jail staff that he had a job opportunity for him that would aid in his rehabilitation process. He was released for this very reason. And if you need any more evidence to prove that Gary and Gerald are one and the same, I can give it to you. There is one line of questioning that gives you a pretty bad jump scare, one where you do nothing but insult Gerald.
Hey, let's be positive around here. Listen, we don't have to go down this way. Let's just change the subject. Please don't do this to me. I mean no harm. It wasn't my fault. I don't know why I'm here. Why did I deserve this? Who am I? Why am I?
Now, there are many important things that happen here. You say he's worthless, that he disgusts you, and then finally, you tell him it's too late for him. Here, he panics, wondering who he is, why he's there, what he did, and then boom! jump scare. But right after that, we get a distorted red face, one that speaks to us in a familiar gibberish. But reversing this dialogue gives us a line of dialogue that is mind-blowing.
Now I can see he is a bigger monster than me.
He? Who's he? We know already. He's talking about Monkford, the one that forced him in there and terrorized so many people already. He feels guilty enough about the murder of those 2 people and considers himself a monster. He never wanted to hurt anyone, but Monkford did. He always has. And Gerald/Gary has been hit with a reality check. There truly is someone far worse than he is. And then, if we compare that red face to the picture of Gary we gain access to in the article, we see many similarities. The hair and the hairline, the shape of the head, the nose. If we just change the color of the red face to brown, yes, that's definitely him. So that's the kid and Gary covered. But what about the questions answers person? In that game, you were simply asked a string of yes/no questions, so it couldn't really be someone talking to you, could it? Wrong. If you pay close attention to the answers you receive, you'll notice something a bit odd, yet familiar. Do you think video games will take over the world? Have you played this game before? Are you sure you're playing a game? Do you know what reality is? Are you close with your family? Do you think even loved ones could hurt each other? If someone were to get in a fatal accident, would the death be painful? All of these questions are incredibly odd, but that last one hits a little closer to home than the rest. It's oddly specific. Why a fatal accident? Out of all the questions to ask, why that one? Because the person behind that question was in one themselves. The question answers person is the mother that died in the crash. Unlike Gerald, she was put in the game as a chance to live on, but unfortunately for her, there is no happiness in the world of 98XX, just prison. That's why she asked us if we knew we were playing a game. That's why she questioned if we knew what reality was, because we didn't. We couldn't have. It all seems like just a game to us. That was the point, to keep it all hidden behind entertaining, simplistic games. But we run into a problem with these last 2 people. Something just doesn't add up. The first 2 people made sense. They criticized Monkford, so they were banished to the Shadow Realm. But Summers, the mother, they had no connection to Monkford, and after the suicide outbreaks, we can be fairly sure that he does not act out of the kindness of his heart. He is a man of pure selfish intent. So why these 2 people? Why are they so special? Let's go back and take a look at the date on that Jumping Julian article, the one that discusses its collapse and Jason Storm's criticism. August 12, 1998. Does that date sound familiar? It should. That is the exact same day that Gary Summers crashed into and killed the mother and daughter in the car accident. And in that article, we learned that Monkford was heartbroken and depressed. But maybe it wasn't all because of the negative feedback. It surely played a role, but maybe another factor pushed him over the edge. The sudden loss of his wife and child. Gary Summers crashed into his family, taking both of their lives, leaving him completely alone in a world full of negative criticism and no support system. That would make it all make sense, why someone so self-absorbed would commit to putting a random drunk driver into this hell, why that mother would end up living here despite both having nothing to do with him and being innocent. This is why. To further prove this point, there is an article that seems unrelated to all the rest that we receive about a cemetery break-in. At 12:34 a.m. on February 18th, 1999, an unknown person was reported to have snuck into Greenwood Cemetery and dug up 2 graves before fleeing the scene. No one ever found out who did it, but the specification of 2 bodies is too important to ignore. There is only one instance in this entire game where there is a mention of 2 deaths at the same time, and those bodies would have to be pretty close to one another for you to dig them both up and flee before the police arrived at the scene at 1:36 a.m. Only an hour after the report was put in. It is highly likely that the bodies were beside each other, as family often is. And it was Monkford that dug up these bodies. He wanted his family back, so in desperation, he retrieved them. Okay, but hold on now. Some things I'm saying don't quite make sense now, do they? Those graves were dug up in February of 1999, and according to Gary's article, he wasn't released on bail until March of 1999. If our timeline is right, Mumford committed suicide in around early November of 1998. Him living on as a computer chip makes sense, but how could he appear physically to free Gary or dig up his family? He couldn't! He's dead! Or is he? After dying in the questions answers game, you are faced with a website. Now, typing in that link directly brings you nowhere, and adding .com brings you straight to the game's homepage. But what if you just search 98XX World? If you do this, you gain access to an interesting link titled Lost Documents. The first document talks about the decline of Calvis Games, and their decision to accept new methods and technology in order to make it in a world where an Italian plumber is beginning to dominate, among other high-quality games. This makes sense in terms of all we've learned so far. Calvis Games very clearly moved toward using the advanced ROSI computer chips to thrust themselves forward, the very same ones that Mumford had stolen, the ones responsible for forcing consciousness into computers. But the document that's important to us here is one titled Classified. If you open this document, you get a science log from an unknown date, and this entire log talks about one thing, one extremely important, mysterious, otherworldly object, a resurrection crystal. This has got to seem like the most random document ever when placed alongside all of the ones we have accessed so far. But when you really think about things and put them into perspective, it begins to make sense. A crystal capable of reviving the dead, Mumford, a man who people assume had committed suicide in his home, and maybe he did, but he never intended to stay dead for very long. He found the secret to returning to life, and so he did. And his work continued on in secret, both through the computer world and in the real world. I understand that there are some small holes in this theory, some questions I may not have the answers to, and that really comes down to the fact that I'm working alone, figuring it all out and piecing it together by myself. I'm simply doing the best I can with what I have, and by no means am I saying I'm 100% correct. But if you even find my theories interesting at all, I have a few more secrets to share, a few more theories to unravel. The biggest one of all being this: what is our purpose here? What are we supposed to do as players? And I found the answer to that too, but that'll have to all be saved for another video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like at the bottom, and by all means, comment some of your own thoughts. Just try not to be too mean. I'm just a regular guy doing my best here. Stay tuned for the next part of the theory. And with all that being said, I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.